Thank you. So good afternoon to you all. You hear me fine? So first, I noticed that obviously we all switched to the daylight saving, but everybody shouldn't have, I think, changed their watch. So that's why only half of you are already here, but thanks for you who are here today. So just in a quick introduction of myself. So I'm Nicolas Kozakiewicz. I have 20 years of experience. I both have an engineering degree and I have an HEC degree as well. I spent 10 years in the big corporations like Alcatel or Atos, and 10 years in the startup industry, mostly in the Silicon Valley, where I funded and raised and developed 3 different startups in the semiconductor industry. Why do I say that? It's just not to brag, it's just to say innovation is something that is very important, but innovation has to be very, very, very pragmatic. So we don't make innovation just for the sake of innovation. Innovation must always solve an issue. And I think that's pretty interesting because when you look at the blockchain and cryptocurrencies, sometimes you really have to ask yourself, what kind of problem do I solve with a blockchain? So the goal of that 1-hour session is, of course, to give you all the keys to understand cryptocurrencies and blockchains, and also to help you have a good understanding of what are the quote-unquote usual use cases that we see in the blockchain environment, what are the classical problems that we solve with the blockchain. So the Q&A session will be at the end. If you really have a very urgent and present question, please wait 4 slides, and if you don't have the answer in the next 4 slides, then you can ask the question, but only if it's really, if it prevents you from really following the pitch. Okay? So let's start then. Okay, technical problem first. Probably because I haven't clicked on the right window. Okay, so first let's take a look at what happened last year. Last year was not the first year of the blockchain environment, but some important things happened. Of course, you all know about in the trading environment, you all know about the difference between the demand and the supply, and you all know that it's something about an equilibrium. Okay, the equilibrium must be found, and when it's found, it just stays there, and that's where you have something that's working fine. But what we've noticed last year is that a bubble exploded. Bitcoin just crashed. Not only Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies in general just crashed. Why? Because simply that basic rule was not respected. So let's put it this way, it's not rocket science. Everybody said this is doomed, this is the end of cryptocurrencies. Everybody said the fall of the titans. But some other interesting facts also happened at the same time. First, you all heard about ICOs, initial coin offerings. It's been rocketing high, and still it's based on cryptocurrencies. So it's kind of surprising. Something else also, investments on the blockchain. So venture capitalists never put more money than last year in the cryptocurrency environment, in the blockchains. Why, if it was the fall of the titans? So obviously, it's not yet the fall of the titans. It was just, I think, a snafu, a mishap. It was something important that happened, but it's not the end of everything. So if 2017 was really the year where everybody was really trying to understand what the blockchain was all about, 2018 will be really the year of the adoption. So I think that we'll see more and more use cases, more and more usages, more and more blockchains around us. This is what lots of analysts says anyway, and I do totally share their point of view. So what I suggest that we make a little zoom on what happened before even 2017 to see what really happened on the blockchain. So first, I would like to start with a definition. You probably read lots of definitions about the blockchains. This is probably the smallest one that you ever read. And even if I had to really sum it up, the only important point here is the word protocol. So blockchain is a protocol. It's an algorithm. It's IT. It's software. It's software that brings 2 things, trust and traceability. Remember what I said to start with? Innovation is all about solving some problems. So here, it's an innovation that solves problems linked to trust and traceability. It works in multi-market, and it's usually used for end-to-end services. It doesn't mean that it serves the full end-to-end service. No, it's used. So blockchain is a layer. You're solving a big end-to-end solution, and blockchain will be one of the many layers. So it's a mean, not an end. Let's have some words of caution, especially for the French-speaking people in the audience. But first, blockchains are not just about cryptocurrencies. We all heard about cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and so on, and it's really the tip of the iceberg. It's what really everybody's talking about, but it's not, in my opinion, the most interesting part. The blockchain being a protocol, it can do lots of other things than simply cryptocurrencies, so I suggest that we take a look at everything, at the whole scope of what blockchains can bring. Second words of caution is that in the blockchain environment, and here in that case in the Bitcoin environment, there are lots of very specific words. Ledger, for instance, that in French translates into book of accounts, which is stupid, which doesn't make any sense, because actually in the Bitcoin ledger, there is no account number. There could be account numbers, but there's no account numbers. So ledgers are just logs, no more no less. Miners. When we say miners, we all picture a dwarf with a pickaxe in a tunnel under the mountain, finding new gold. No, they are just data processors. I have colleagues who are processing data as we speak. I don't call them miners. They're just colleagues or data processors. You also heard about the consensus. Again, here consensus doesn't mean majority. Here a consensus just means a way to reach to an agreement. It can be just an agreement between two people. For instance, in companies, very often it's just the top management who are making the calls. It's a consensus because the decision has been taken. So really it's the same case, same thing. It's just about having an agreement on something. And last but not least, Oracle is neither an old man with a very long beard who's predicting the future in an orb. No, it's not the database either. It's just a third party who's going to confirm or deny some information, period. So there's lots of different words. Why? I don't know, but I assume that the guys who invented the Bitcoin must have been playing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons at the same time, and they wanted to keep some of the vocabulary with them. That's the only reason I can find. But so that we're clear. So you may have noticed, but I'm not saying blockchain. I'm saying blockchains, plural. Why? Because there's a whole lot, it's a huge list of different blockchains. There's more than 1,500 different blockchains as we speak. That's huge. They are not all totally different from one another. Lots of them are copycats of each other's, but nevertheless, there's lots of different flavors and lots of different offers. We're not going to cover all of them. I'm not working, or my team is not working on all of them. We're working on some of them. Why? Because again, blockchain is a protocol, and it can be instantiated in different ways. Those ways are created to solve certain types of problems. So you can say that all of those different blockchains have been designed to solve different problems, discrete problems. There may be a little bit of overlap in between them, of course, but they have a specific goal. They have a specific aim. So the blockchain, as I said, is multi-market, and it can be used in lots of different environments like financial services, governance and voting, healthcare, music, Internet of Things, media. They even forgot transport, logistics, energy, insurance. All of those environments, of course, can use trust and traceability. So that's why the blockchain is a layer that can be used in many different environments to solve lots of different problems. So we've been working on the blockchain for quite a while, for more than 4 years. We have lots of different use cases, and I will present you some of them. We started back in 2013, and just to say, in 2013, we really looked at, back then, at the blockchain from the Bitcoin angle. So we started to accept Bitcoin as a payment mean, because nobody really looked back in those days at the blockchains in general. So we've covered lots of things. We worked on lots of different things. I'm not covering them all. It's not of interest here today, but just to show you that we've been working on lots of different environments, because there are many, many different things, many different facets to the blockchains. So let's take a look in short of what the blockchain is, and looking at all the different proof of concepts that we've worked on. At some point we asked ourselves, so is there a special environment, a special case in which we are sure that the blockchain is useful? Is there a context in which blockchains are applicable by design? And we came up with that definition of a classical blockchain context. I'm not saying that blockchains are useful only in that context. I'm just saying that if you are in that context, blockchains will bring something to the plate. That's for sure. This is the context. If you have a group of users represented here by those pyramids with a common goal, and part of that common goal is a need to trace or log events or data, but without native trust. So that means that that guy shares information with that guy, but is not sure that that guy is not going to mess around with the data to his benefit. If you are in that environment, blockchain brings something to the plate. Why? Because today, the only solution we had was to line up everybody on the internet, have one central point that was secured, where you had a master of data that was overseeing the data and that was saying, you can sleep on both ears, no problem, no one will touch the data. That was the only way to ensure that. That's decentralized governance. What blockchain brings is a totally different approach, where all the peers are interconnected, where data can be distributed, doesn't have to be distributed, it can be distributed, processing can be distributed, doesn't have to be distributed, and there's trust and security by design, and you don't need that third party anymore. That's the decentralized governance. So what are the main interests of going through the blockchain? The first one, the obvious one, is that you don't need that trusted party, because that trusted party is something that you have to pay for. So you can at least already win some money not using that guy. The other very important things about it is that it's secured, mathematically secured. There are mathematical algorithms that ensure that the data is secured. It's scalable. Usually when I say that, someone says, yeah, but the Bitcoin is not scalable. I said, that's right. But Bitcoin is not blockchains. Bitcoin is just one instantiation of the blockchain, and I agree with you. Bitcoin is not very scalable. But it's because the people who created the blockchain, the Bitcoin, had made some editorial choices for very, very good reasons. We'll see some later on in the slides. That makes the Bitcoin blockchain not very scalable. But all the others are scalable. It's multi-tenant, meaning that you can have lots of different participants to the blockchain. It's easily interfaceable to other systems, so it doesn't have to be alone somewhere where nobody touches it. It can be linked to other systems. It allows to manage access to the data. It's auditable and evolutive. So lots of assets, lots of very good advantages brought by that technology. So here on that slide, I have the audacity to tell you what the Bitcoin does in only one slide with only 3 very small sentences. So first, I would like you, and for the rest of that session, to always picture blockchains by a plane. Each time you hear the word blockchain, you visualize a plane. I'm not Mesmer, I'm not trying to mess with your head, I'm just saying, please, when I say blockchain, please imagine a plane. So the Bitcoin blockchain is a plane. On that plane, you have tokens. Those tokens are stuck in the plane. They cannot get in, they cannot get out. They can only slide, and they never fall. Around the blockchain, around the plane, you have the users. In that case, users are authentified, which means I'm known by Toto21. I'm not known by my name, but I'm authentified. If I was identified, I would be known by my name. Here in that case, a pseudonym is enough. And here you have the blockchain that is empty. All the Bitcoin blockchain does, and it doesn't do any more than that. If a token moves from a pyramid to another pyramid, the blockchain will write in an immutable manner. That means that once it's written, it cannot be neither modified nor erased. It's written once and for all that this token went from that pyramid to that pyramid. That's all. No account numbers. If the token moves again, the blockchain will note that the token then, chronological order, moved from that pyramid to that pyramid, and so on and so forth. So the Bitcoin blockchain is nothing more than a list or movement of known tokens in between authentified users. That's all. But it's already huge. It's already huge. But it's, in simple words, that's all it does. So what we've noticed is that there are three main ways of using the blockchain. And you'll see that all the examples that we'll list afterwards, all the examples you may have read in different articles, are all falling in one of those three examples. The first one is amongst those users, you have one user that writes and all the others that read. One example, identification. I'm the French state. I know, I can tell who is French and who is not French. So I'm the only one who's allowed to write, you are a new French citizen, or you just lost your French citizenship. So here, the state is the only one who can write, yet all the rest of the country or the world should have the right to have access to that information. So that's one of the use cases of the blockchain. Second use case, probably guessed it, it's the other way around. Everybody writes but can't read. One can read but can't write. That's the voting system. Or, for instance, logging patents, ideas, software code timestamping or anything. I write in the blockchain, for instance, for my vote. Nobody, and I can't read, so I don't know who voted what. And only one person, the person who organizes the vote, has the ability to read who has voted what, or what pseudonym has voted for what, because it can be anonymous voting, but that person cannot write. And the third use case is all nodes can read and write, so that's a little bit more complicated, but that's the case for cryptocurrencies, asset management, multi-tenant traceability, etc. So most of the cases you can see are in that environment here, but some other more simple use cases can also be seen. But basically, that's the way it works. So what I suggest now is that we're going to go on very concrete use cases so that you can really picture how it works and what it does and what it doesn't do. Let's take a use case in the e-health. Are we in a classical blockchain environment? Yes. We'll see patients, doctors, pharmacists, emergency doctors who are sharing information, and they are not sure that they're not going to mess around with the information. So we are in perfect use case. As you can see now, blockchain is a plane. So now you can recognize a blockchain. So here on that environment, you will see that here I have my health data. As you can see, my health data is not in the blockchain. Blockchains are not databases. Okay? In a blockchain, you can only do insert, insert, insert. You can only write. You can neither modify nor delete. So it's not a database. So here you have all of my health information that is in a secured cloud somewhere on internet. Here around that blockchain, you have a certain amount of peers, of users. You have me. You can notice that I have a key. So in that case, I'm identified. I'm known by my name, my social security number. So I'm really, really identified. There's my family doctor, Dr. Smith. You have a pharmacist, and you have here the hospital. So let's say I go and see my doctor. What the blockchain will do here is that the blockchain will check our keys, and the blockchain will write down in an immutable way that Nicolas is right now with Dr. Smith. And it will be written forever. Nicolas is with Dr. Smith now. And at the same time, not through the blockchain, or it can be through the blockchain, but it can be also be out of band. It allows Dr. Smith to have access to my medical history here in read mode and to the prescription zone in write mode. Should Dr. Smith open any documents about myself, the blockchain will write down, now Dr. Smith, in the presence of Nicolas, has opened that document. The blockchain will not store the document. The blockchain will store a signature of the document. So the blockchain doesn't need to know what's in the document, but the blockchain must be able to say, if presented 10,000 documents, the blockchain will say, this is the document he read. I don't know what's in it, I don't care what's in it, but this is what he read. Okay? Then he writes a prescription. The prescription is written here, and again, the blockchain will write down, he wrote this prescription. I don't know what's in it, I just stored the signature of it. I'll be able to tell of all the prescription written to Nicolas, this is the one he wrote on that day. It cannot be modified. It's here, okay? And that's all it does. Then I go to the pharmacist. Again, we're together identified, and the blockchain will write down that now Nicolas is with that pharmacist. It opens in read mode the prescription zone. The pharmacist will read the prescription, and the blockchain will write down, this pharmacist opened that prescription. I don't know what's in it, I don't care what's in it, but he opened that one. So it's going to give me some medication. We can write the medication he gave me or not. It doesn't really matter. So I'm very happy, but I still don't feel good. 2 days afterwards, I go to the hospital. Again, the blockchain will write down that 2 days afterwards, I went to the hospital and I saw doctor whatever. And here I want them to have access to everything because I want to understand what happened. How come I don't feel better? Is it the pharmacist who didn't give me the right medication? Or he gave me the right medication, but the prescription is just not good? So why is the prescription not good? Because he didn't look at the right document? Or maybe because it's just a fake? Or maybe I just developed an allergy? The blockchain will be able to clear that up, because everything is written down. And I will find out that actually it's an allergy that I just had. So nobody could detect that. So everybody is safe because everything that happened has been stored in an immutable way, in a chronological way, in the blockchain. Let's take another more simple example. We'll take a look at how we can do some cross-border instant cross-currency payment. So here in that case, you have a blockchain where you have two types of users, identified users. You have regular users like me and my friend here, and you have here super users. The difference between super users and regular users is that regular users can only push tokens on the table, that's all, and super users has the right to provide a token to someone in exchange of real money. So here in that case, my friend wants to send me $50, but I want them in euros. So the first thing he does is that he finds a super user and he trades $50 for the same amount in tokens. Then he slides the tokens to me. So we are already there. I almost already have, so I have $50 worth of value, but I don't have real $50 or the equivalent. So all I have to do here is find another super user who has euros and who will trade the tokens for the equivalent of $50 in euros. And then we had a cross-country, cross-currency instant payment with only one intermediary here. While today, in the real life, you have 3, 4, or 5 different intermediaries. So it's long and it's very costly. So this is one of the other use cases of the blockchain. If you have read about a blockchain called Ripple, this is exactly what Ripple does. So it's a classical environment, classical use case of the blockchain. Let's take another example, car maintenance book. So I suppose that you trust me that it fits in the classical context. So in that case, you will have garage, car makers, you will have car owners, and you will have garage dealers. The idea is to make sure that you have a clear and truthful list of the way a car has been maintained. In other words, each time I bring my car to the garage will write down in the blockchain the fact that he saw that car with such serial number and that he did on that date that, and that the current mileage was that. Please be aware that in France, 40% of the used cars sold have a false mileage. 40. So it is of real importance. So next time you buy a used car, bear that in mind. So here in that case, we will put all that information in the blockchain so that if I want to sell my car to somebody else, I can grant to the potential buyer access to the blockchain so that he can check by himself that the car has been properly maintained and that the mileage didn't go up and suddenly went down, which would be a bad sign. So thanks to that, the blockchain here is used as a notary secure environment where information can be stored but cannot be modified. But it's not only useful for car makers because it will also be very useful for insurances. These days, you're renting more and more things. or your carpooling, your car sharing. Maybe your insurance would like to know if the car you're going to pull in has been properly maintained, or if you're taking incredible risks. Another use case in the financial environment is corporate bonds. So here you see the blockchain here, and here you see another plane. That plane here is the regular wire transfer plane. So each time you will see an arrow here, that means it's a regular account-to-account transfer. It's no cryptocurrency, nothing at all, just regular bank-to-bank account transfer. Okay. So here you have a company that is issuing bonds. Let's say those bonds have a 2 years life cycle, and that they are generating a 5% fee per month. Here, today, when people are selling bonds, they know who they are selling the bonds to, but if the people are selling bonds to other people, they lose track, and it's very difficult for them to pay the fees, and they don't know where they are, and that's very complicated. Here, we're going to use the blockchain as a traceability system. So in that case, each time a bond will be changing owner, just like, for instance, this guy who's buying, look here, is buying the bond. So the blockchain here will consider that guy as the new rightful owner of that bond only when the user's bank will have paid financial services bank the right amount of money. So the blockchain is linked to another IT environment, here in that case, financial wire transfer environment, and things will be triggered here only when they occur in the other plane. So there's a direct link in between those two planes. If that guy buys a bond, same thing, the blockchain will wait for that transfer to occur to grant that person the real ownership of that bond. And the great thing is that if you sell bonds from people to people, as long as they are paying each other in the rightful way, the blockchain will change the ownership of people based on that. So the blockchain would have the exact ownership of the different bonds. And which is great, because at the end of the month, when you have to pay the 5% fee, you need to know who has been owning what bond for how long. So the blockchain has all of this information already. So the blockchain can here, at the end of the month, generate in an automatical way all the wire transfer to the right person with the right amount. If they had owned the bonds longer, they will have a bigger wire transfer. And at the end of the 2 years life cycle, when the bonds will be called back, again, the blockchain will wait for the bank, the financial service bank, to pay the latest users of the right amount before they change ownership again. So if you have heard before about smart contracts, this is an example of a smart contract. One last example, in a manufacturing environment. So here, imagine all these rectangles here are information systems. You have raw material provider, first level manufacturer. We are here the last level manufacturer, so we're making the product. Transporter, retailer, consumer. The only way to have end-to-end traceability here is to open up all the information systems, break them up, and share information. Nobody wants to do that because it's too dangerous security-wise. So where the blockchain is really useful is that you create a plane on top of the existing information system, and you simply create very small APIs, small pipes, where you decide what information is pushed up, what information is pulled down. You create identification systems so that only the right people can participate here. And thanks to that, you have the ability to track exactly the whole life cycle of any product. And if you have problem, for instance, with that transporter here, no problem. You just revoke his authentication, you cut that API, you select another transporter, you grant new identification, you create the other API, and you keep on working with that. So it's as simple as that. You can track and trace absolutely everything. And here we are in the manufacturing environment. Just change raw material by raw chemical, pharmaceutical company, transport, pharmacies, patients, and you have full traceability in pharmaceutical environment. It's the exact same story. Or something that we say that we have developed is full traceability of products. So here you have the producers, processor, retailer, consumer, and you can use the blockchain to ensure that whatever product you buy in a retailer shop really comes from where it says on the label. So this is something that we have developed and announced 3 weeks ago with Bureau Veritas. So Bureau Veritas is a certification and audit company. And their job is to guarantee that labels or that certification are true, are respected, that people are playing by the book. So with them, we have developed a full blockchain that allows production people, transport people, processing people, retailer people to provide and push just the amount of information necessary for them to validate the full traceability of the products. And you, as the end customer, you have a QR code here. All you have to do is scan the QR code and you will have not simply the guarantee that the label has been really followed by the book, but if you buy here, let's say some tuna, you will know on what date, on what boat, in what region in the world, you could have the geographical exact place where your tuna has been caught, thanks to that. So this is something that we've put in production. It's a single blockchain that allows different workflows for different food industry to be totally securely shared on the same and single blockchain. So these are very, clear use cases of what we can gain of that trust and traceability features of the blockchain. I forgot about this one, last one. On identity this time, because this one is pretty funny. So you know that more and more you have service providers, digital service providers, who are asking you your identity. So let's say that this is purely example taking really randomly. Let's say here you have a gaming company, okay? Pure example, random example. So here you have to prove that you're over 21. The only way to prove that you are over 21 is to send your ID through a copy. So it's not very secure, and you give lots of information you might not be willing to give. Your nationality, your address, place of birth, date of birth, etc. You should only have to say and prove I'm over 21. That's all that is asked. So here the blockchain can help in a very interesting way. So here you will take a very public and open blockchain, okay, where I will write down I am Nicolas and I'm over 21. That's all I'm writing. Just like I take a board and on that board I write I'm Nicolas and I'm over 21. So far it doesn't make any sense. It's just me saying that. I could say I'm the Pope and I'm 12 years old. It doesn't make any sense. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to ask identity providers who know me. So for instance, my bank, the state, my insurance company, my school, my employer. I'm going to ask them, please go on that board and put your stamp on it next to it, saying you confirm that you know me and then that I am indeed over 21. So here on that blockchain, I will have my statement and a set of stamps from very well-known companies who are confirming the fact that I'm over 21. And now all I can say is go to the service provider and say, okay, go and look here. Oops, go and look here. Oh yeah, there's an arrow, but it's not appearing. And the service provider can directly see on the blockchain that I have a certain amount of stamps that are guaranteeing what I'm saying. So this is another way to deal easily with identification thanks to the blockchain. Now let's get a little bit more into details about the difference between blockchain and Bitcoin. So first, blockchain and Bitcoin. One is the underlying technology, the other one is the first implementation use case. If you want, we can go through a longer definition as the one I gave, but basically it says the same thing. It's a tracking system that is distributed with chronological order for transaction or events, without trust, without central authority, central maintenance, on a peer-to-peer environment. So same thing, but just a little bit longer. So in other words, a blockchain is a chain of blocks, no kidding, with an origin block, a set of blocks that are chronologically ordered, and you have users and processors, also called miners, who are building blocks, and once in a while, when a consensus is reached, a new block is added to the chain. Just like a book, from time to time, you add another page to the book. That's the way basically it works. The whole point of it, as you understood, is traceability. If you want to know about the ownership of that box, and that each here little vertical line refers to a transaction, so a change of ownership, All the blockchain does is just store in a block, so store in a page, each event in a chronological order. That means that those blocks will stay in that order. There may be other blocks in between, but these blocks will stay in that order, which means that if at some point you need to know who was the owner of that box at that time, you just revert time. You just go look at the book in the, from the end to the beginning, find your information, and you will have a proof of the ownership of it. All this is based on crypto security. So crypto security is based, I mean, all the IT security in the world right now is based on this, so it's pretty classical. You have a private key and a public key. A private key is used to sign a document, and then you provide your signed document with the public key, and anybody can check that this is the right key. So that means that that key unlocks that lock, and that you are the rightful owner of the content of that document. In other words, when you take a check and you sign the check, if someone asks you your ID, it's just to check that the signature is the same principle. So in a nutshell, what is a blockchain? A blockchain is in a network, which is private or public, but without no central authority. You have transactions that here in our case is just following the ownership of different blocks. Each time a box changes owners, it creates a transaction. Each transaction is secured by the keys. Lots of transactions are appearing at the same time. Those transactions are sent into a pending transaction zone. And once in a while, all those transactions are put in a new block. And when a consensus is reached, the new block is added to the chain. That's the way it works. It's not more complicated than that. Now let's take a look at the Bitcoin itself and the first implementation use case. So first, Bitcoin is of course a cryptocurrency. You know that. It's also something very fluctuating. It's something that is that has its own bubble. So now it's worth more than $5,000, but it went really close to $20,000, 4 times the current value. So it's just crazy. But it happened. So 2 important facts is that the number of Bitcoins are limited. So Bitcoins come in a limited supply. There will be 21 million Bitcoins available in 2033. So it's a limited supply. The second thing is that Bitcoins can be chopped in very, very small portions. A euro can be chopped in 100 cents. A Bitcoin can be chopped in 1 million satoshis. Okay? This is what a Bitcoin transaction looks like. I know it's not very sexy, it's not very readable either, so let's try to see exactly how it works inside. So the way it works is that, like I said at the beginning, there's no account number. So let's say that if I have to give you some Bitcoins, if I have to give you, let's say, 110 Bitcoins, which is quite a big amount of money, how does it work? I will create a transaction that says, I want to hand out to you 110 Bitcoins. You're welcome. The way it works is that for me to give you 110 Bitcoins, I don't have to give you neither an identity or an account number. All I have to do is prove you that I have at least 110 Bitcoins in my possession right now. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you, I'm going to make a reference to 2 older transactions where I'm the recipient. As you have the same book as I have, I will tell you on page 23, you can see that there's 100 Bitcoins that came to me, and on page 3, there was 12.5 Bitcoins that came to me. You can check in your book. Your book and mine are the same, so you can check. So you can check that indeed, I'm the owner of these Bitcoins. So these Bitcoins do exist. So in that case, I have 2.5 Bitcoins more here than here. So as we need to have the same inputs and outputs, so I will send the change to myself, 2 Bitcoins back to me, and half a Bitcoin here as fees. Because lots of people think that Bitcoin transactions are free. No, there are fees in Bitcoin transactions, so it's very expensive. It's very expensive. When it was at 15,000 euros, a transaction was worth $15. So imagine when you're paying with your credit card, if you have $15 added to you on top of what you're paying just to use the card, you wouldn't use your card that often. So that's the kind of thing just to bear in mind. So now it must be like $5 per transaction, but that's still very expensive. So you say use that transaction, and at some point, the system will bring you a new page to your book, and on that page you will see that you are the new owner of 110 bitcoins, which means that after that, you can yourself create a new transaction saying that, look, in the last page, I'm the rightful owner of 110 bitcoin, so I can spend them. So it's all about this. It's all about always pointing out in the earliest page of the book transactions that are referring to you. So I proved you that I had at least 110 bitcoins, but maybe I have 10,000, or maybe that's all I had. You don't know. Only I know. So let's talk about miners. Miners, it's just a race against the clock. Remember, there's the pending transaction zone, and here all the little vertical lines are pending transactions. Let's assume that here you have a miner in the US, in Europe, in India, in China, and in Japan. They are all competing against one another, and it's a race. Okay? The goal is that the one who wins the race wins 12.5 bitcoins. So it's just like in Monopoly. In Monopoly, you have all the bills to start with in the bank, and each time you go around the deck, you get bills. So here's the same thing. Each time you add a new block, someone gets money from the bank. And we know that there's 21 million Bitcoin to start with in the bank. Today, there must be still 5 million Bitcoins still in the bank, but there's the bank. So they are all racing to win that. And they win not only that, they win that plus the sum of the fees of the block they have created. One thing that is important is that in the IT, if you stop everything at an instant, you imagine that if a transaction is created in the US, someone in the US will see the transaction earlier than someone in India, and vice versa. If a transaction is created in India, people in India will see it faster than people in the US. So there's a little latency, which means that if you take a snapshot, all these people here do not see exactly the same pending transactions. 90-some% are the same transactions, but it's not exactly the same. So this is how the race goes. While the guys are running, they are picking some transactions, and they are checking that they are good. By checking they are good, they look at the references. Do they exist? Yes. Is the transaction written in a proper way? Yes. And if it's the case, they have a new box, and they put in the box, this transaction is okay. And they keep on running, and as they run, they just add transactions that they are checking, and they make the sum of the different fees. Okay? And when one wins, yeah, he says, I'm the winner, this is my box, and he wins 12.5 new bitcoins from the bank, plus the sum of all the fees of all the different transactions that he checked. So that's why the more fees you put on a transaction, the faster it's processed, because the people who are racing tend to take the transactions with the highest fee compared to the transactions with the lowest fee. So they're winning, and what is interesting is that it takes more or less 10 minutes for someone to win the race. So every roughly 10 minutes, you have the bank giving out some money. And if I go back to an earlier slide, this explains the shape here of the number of bitcoins put in circulation by the bank. Every 4 years, the number of bitcoin distributed by the bank is divided by 2. So these days, it's 12.5 bitcoins per new block. 2 years ago, it was 25. 6 years ago, it was 50. 10 years ago, it was 100. So that's why you have the shape of this. And that's why it's very important for the bank to give the new bitcoins every 10 minutes, because the goal is to have all the money given in 2/33, not in 2/30. So if the bank had to give the money faster than expected, they would run short of money earlier. And that's not the plan. So the system is built to ensure that this curve is exactly followed. We'll see just how. So once you have won that race, there's the consensus. How does the consensus work? Well, it's pretty simple. All the nodes here are connected. If I win the race, it's not over. The block is not added to the chain yet. First, I will give you my box, and I will give you, and you, and you, and first person of each row, I will give you a copy. It's a digital copy of my box. And your role will be to check that all the transactions in it are okay. And if you think they are okay, you give it to the next person. If you think there's anything bizarre in that block, in my box, you just discard it. So in other words, it's what is called here the consensus, is that it's a flow. If my box reaches the other end of the hole, that means that everybody has agreed on the content, because everybody passed it to the next person. So this is a consensus by flow, and that's the way it works. Now you probably also heard about proof of work. So actually, when the people are racing here to find who is the winner, there's a way to find that out. The way is called the proof of work. And it works like this. And it's the only mathematical function that you'll see in my slides. So all the players have the same function here that is known. And that function says that if you put x, x is the number of the last valid block. In other words, it's the number of the last page of the book. You take y randomly, 12, 100, 12,312,011. You pick up numbers randomly, and you compute f, x, y. And it gives you a z. And the game says, the first one who finds the z that starts with 3 zeros, he wins. So it's just like if you were into front of a slot machine, yanking on the arm, and the first one that has 3 zeros, he says, I won. And it's pretty easy to check it up, because if I win on the box, if y12 works, on my box, I will write y equals 12. And when I give you, and each of you, the box to check, you will check the content, but you will also check that f, the x12, do start with 3 zeros. So you know that I won, because I found a value that works. But the system is like everybody is trying to cheat. They created systems to go faster. So they created a robotic arm that was able to yank on the arm faster than real people. And the amount of time in between two winners started to be 9 minutes, 8 minutes, 7 minutes. And like I said, the system is designed to ensure that those 10 minutes are kept. So what did the system say? The system say, we ask for another 0. They added a roll to the machine. And people kept on putting more processing power, more processing power. When you hear about all that energy lost, to some extent it's true. But that energy is only used to compute that and to find a number that starts with x zeros. And the more people put processing power, the more the system asks for more zeros. So the more processing power is put to try to push the system in its limit, the more the system asks for more power. So it's a pure security system. It's a pure reaction of the system to protect itself. Let's not forget that in the Bitcoin environment, you have thousands of billions of dollars worth in it. All the hackers in the world are trying to hack Bitcoin. Don't try to hack Decathlon's fidelity loyalty number. Who cares? Try to hack this. you'll get rich. So this is under attack constantly. And the system has an inner self-defense mechanism that is pretty smart. So next time you will hear that Bitcoin do consume lots of energy, it's just because it's trying to protect itself. At the very beginning, a laptop was enough to win a race. Today you could use your smartphone to win a race. It would be sufficient if people did not try to hack the system. And if tomorrow people stop to try to win the race, the system will go the other way around. The system will request less and less zeros, demanding less and less power. So it's really, again, an equilibrium system. You probably also heard about proof of stakes, which is another way to win the race. It's not in the Bitcoin, it's in other environments, but it's here a way to say, if you want to win, we're going to pick people who has the most token from the longest time. So if you've been in the system for quite a while and you own lots of tokens, you're not interested in hacking the system because you're using it. But if you are a new member with only 3 tokens, we're not going to let you mess around with it. That's the way it works. So in other words, Bitcoin, if we compare it to a classical blockchain, is a public blockchain, while the others can be public or private. Here it tracks the ownership of Bitcoins, not of boxes. You have transactions. Those transactions are secured again by keys, and then you have lots of transactions at the same time. Those transactions are put in the pending zone, and every once in a while, every 10 minutes, you have a winner. That winner gives a box, and if the consensus is reached, it's added to the blockchain. So there's many different blockchains. Here you have a list of the main blockchains that are, in my opinion, of interest. So you have Bitcoin, which is still very interesting. Again, the only purpose of Bitcoin is to exchange assets in an anonymous environment in a fully autonomous way. So it's the way it works. Here you can see that there's the cryptocurrency is called Bitcoin, that you have a long transaction time, that the consensus is a proof of work. Then you have multi-chain, which is a Bitcoin-like. You have Ripple that I mentioned earlier, Ethereum that is designed mostly for quote smart contracts, Hyperledger, which is Hyperledger Fabric, which is designed by IBM, which is created for traceability, Quorum, which is another one. As you can see here, they all have cryptocurrencies in it, but not all. For instance, Hyperledger do not have coins in it, as strangely. So again, using a blockchain for cryptocurrency is one usage. You can put a cryptocurrency in a blockchain, but you doesn't have to have a cryptocurrency to have a blockchain. Cryptocurrency is a usage of a blockchain. And even more recently, you have Cardano and IOTA. You may have heard about IOTA because IOTA is not using the system of blocks one after the other, but of system that is called the Tangle. So the Tangle is a direct acyclic graph. So in other words, it's like a plate of spaghetti. So you have lots of things connected to each other. So it's kind of messy, but it has good security reasons as well. So what's to do a blockchain? If you want to create a blockchain, what does it take? It's pretty simple. First, you need to have some users. You need to have those people with the same goal who doesn't trust each other. That's the first thing. Second thing is you have to connect them. You can connect it over internet or over a private network, but you just need is internet. And then all you have to do is some software, because again, blockchain is just an algorithm. It's just pure software. So that software, you're going to create it in a way that you will have different roles, different users. You will have governance. Governance is just a way to say, in our environment, you will be providing this type of information because you have them. You will take that information, compute it, and put it back here. It's just deciding who is doing what. So it's pretty like specifications. We call it governance, but it's more or less good, well described specifications. And you end up with software. So the important thing is that the software can be the same, or it can be lighter version. So for instance, in the Bitcoin environment, you have what we call full nodes, which are nodes who can do processing and managing the chain, and others that are just managing the chains, just wallets. But they are the same software, just a bigger version, and the other one is just a lighter version. But you need to have a software. Then you ask you people to download it, and you go. And it's more or less that. So blockchain is just a common software shared by people together. I'm sure you can think of many other cases of software shared between people who allow lots of different things. So in the IT environment, what is very important to understand is that it's just classical IT. It's not rocket science. In the design phase, we're making specifications. We're going to choose, we're going to check first that the blockchain is applying. We're going to choose which existing blockchain we're going to take off the shelf. We're going to just put black and white the governance, the specifications. Then we're going to develop it like any other piece of software. The only difference will be that we will have a layer that is a blockchain that we took off the shelf and that we customized. That's all. And the rest will be classical IT. And operating it is the same. It's software that runs on different nodes. You have to ensure the connectivity. You have to ensure maintenance of the servers if they need it, backup of some information if it's needed. It's just really classical IT. But what is very interesting is the turnaround time. The turnaround time with blockchain is very, very fast. It just takes a few hours just to sit with someone discussing on the use case and to decide whether or not a blockchain is applicable or not applicable. And then after that, it's just a couple of days to make to design the POC. Then you develop the POC in a few weeks or few months, and then you go live. So it's really something that is pretty fast and pretty classical IT to develop. It's just a new layer. So the last slide, what I would like you to take from this presentation, first, is that blockchain is a technological building block. It's a protocol, no more, no less. That you can do lots of things with a blockchain. That its design and its implementation is different. It's disruptive, but it's accessible to us. We just have to change a little bit the way we think. It's all about transactions that are authenticated, secured, and processed, but basically we are tracking transactions, we're tracking movements, and that we're trying to work in lots of different environments with that. So now is the time for the questions, if you have some, but I'm pretty sure that you have many questions. Yes?
We're talking about for the traceability, because we assume that the person who kind of registered the initial information are trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not the case, then does it matter?
That's why really it's about trust and traceability, not security of the data. Whatever your system, garbage in, garbage out. So at some point, the system needs to have a veracity system to check the authenticity or the high probability of having a right value. But the great thing about the blockchain is that here in that system, especially on private or identified blockchains, people know who is around the table. So, of course, just take the example, of the lasagna with horse beef in it. I mean, the guy swore that it was beef, but it was horse. Nobody can do anything about it. But the one thing for sure is that as everything that is written in the blockchain is written with his own signature, he cannot say, I was not aware. Don't say you're not aware. You wrote it, you signed it with your blood. You wrote it is beef. Don't tell me you were not aware. So the guy will lose totally his reputation, will be put out of the system, and he will actually pay for his dishonesty.
So we're talking about distributed truth, but in fact we are shifting because at the beginning we need some approved people to start the truth chain. So it's just a shift, actually.
No, because the thing is that the one thing is that people know that if they are misbehaving, they will be caught. It's just like going to Switzerland with a case full of cash and having on top of you a sign that says, I'm just trying to put money away. You will be caught. You will be caught. It has to be like this. So people know that if they misbehave, they will get caught. That's for sure. And the second thing is that we also guarantee in the governance that we have information from other peers. So for instance, we can ask, and that's what oracles are here for. So for instance, we may ask to people who are bringing beef or meat to the system that they provide also the invoice from their suppliers. So not only they have to lie, but they have to put other people into lying. And the more people you are trying to put in the system, the less chance you have of people lying. But again, if people all want to lie, no system in the world can prevent that, and not the blockchain. Other questions? Yes? Yeah.
You mentioned that Bitcoin has a very smart defensive system installed in itself.
Yeah.
Then how will these hackers still manage to hack these Japanese like Bitcoin centers or something?
So as far as I know, the Bitcoin has not been hacked ever. The thing that's been hacked are the access to Bitcoin. So it's just like with a gun, if I ask you your credit card and your PIN number, I can use your money. But it's not the system that is the problem. It's because you gave your card and your PIN number. So people who quote unquote lost Bitcoins are people who just lost their number and their PIN, and that there's no way to find it again. In other words, the blockchain is just like a vault, and there's only one key. And you are the person that has the only and sole key. And it's even worse than that. It's a vault with a transparent door. So you know what's inside in most of the cases. And you don't find the key. And that's horrible, because you know your stuff is in there, but you just can't access it. So when you hear about lost Bitcoins, when you hear about people who got stolen, it's the access to the Bitcoin that's been stolen, not the Bitcoins.
Okay, then let's say if like when these hackers they try to use the Bitcoins that they steal the access to, will people be able to identify that these Bitcoins do not belong to them?
That's why in the Bitcoin environment you have what are called clean Bitcoin and dirty Bitcoin. So for instance, we know that Bitcoins are used also for drug deals and stuff like that. And when the police finds Bitcoin in an environment, they mark those Bitcoins as dirty Bitcoins. So some Bitcoins have a lower value to people because they are dirty. So as everything, like I said, it's a book and all the transactions are written in it and cannot be modified. So if at some point you know that if you know that Toto21 is me, then you just open the book and you look for all the occurrences of Toto21 and you know exactly what I've done. Because it's anonymous, but if you know the name of the anonymous people, then everything is written black on white, it's not ciphered, nothing at all, it's accessible to everybody, but that's Bitcoin. Again, that's not blockchains, that's Bitcoin only. Yes?
I have a question related to your metaphor of comparing the protocol as a book that logs all the transaction history. And I think in the first part you mentioned about the critical sort of part of blockchain is that there's no central governance. So my question is, where is that logbook stored? I mean,
it's stored in the Bitcoin environment. It's stored everywhere. Every node has either the whole book or just some pages, but they have also the index of the book to know where the information are. So, and they are connected to other people who have the full version of the book. So if they need, at any point, they can ask any other node, please, I need page 33, or send me a new copy of the book. So it's spread across the network, but we agree, if all the nodes disappear at the same time and that there's no backup, the Bitcoin blockchain disappears. But if you kill all the nodes at one time, and there's one copy left somewhere, that one copy left is enough to regenerate the full system. Yes?
So in blockchain, one of its features is it's immutable, right? So how do we tackle issues like human error, especially in supply chain environment?
How do we tackle what?
Human error.
then in that case, you just post another information saying the previous information is false. So as we're always looking in a counter-timely manner to things, we're going to look for occurrences, and we can decide in that environment to say, that's why I said with identity, you can say that you have a citizenship at some point, but you can lose that citizenship at another point. So as you're going to always take a look from the end, when you're looking for the name of someone, you will find first that he's been that this citizenship has been revoked, and then that he had this citizenship at that time. Yes.
What's the point in working on the consensus part if you do not get anything? Because the one who's getting all the
it's part of the protocol. When you decide to join as a node, you have to agree on the fact that you're going to check any block that is given to you and play the role. But on the other hand, it's your interest, because it's the way you receive the new pages. The way you receive the new pages is like that. You're sent the last pages, you check if everything is okay, and you say, okay, so I consider this one the right one until somebody else tells me this is not the latest one. But you have to play by the rules, yes?
And you didn't describe us as a forks that are created.
No, I didn't describe the fork, so just to, because I didn't describe anything in just an hour. So forks is the fact that if you, let's say that, like I said, we in that environment, so I said that I win because I found a Y that was working, and I started to give my box on that end here of the rows. Just imagine that here somebody else found that Y equals 57 worked too, and said I won, but we didn't know that both claimed we had won. And here a new track is starting here, so I would give you another box that is different, and you will find it fine because the other Y works too. So you will be propagating a new block that way, and they will be propagating a new block that way. And at some point in the middle, you people will be handed two different paper or two different boxes, and you will say, woo, that's weird. So you will take one and you will discard the other. That's as simple as that. So for a moment, we'll have two different versions of the chain. We'll have the same book with here page 12A, and here we'll have a page 12B. And for the moment, it will stay like this. And here, all the people working here will start everything starting on 12B, and here everything will start on 12A. Okay? And you will keep on adding new blocks. And the system says, if because there's a line where people have knowledge of the two different, what we call the two different branches. And the system says, if there's two branches known, at the sixth new block, so at page here 18A and 18B, we just count the number of transactions in the last 6 blocks, and it will survive the chain so that has the most transactions, so the longest chain. So one of the two will disappear. So the reason why it says that you have to wait 1 hour, so 60 minutes, before you can consider a Bitcoin transaction as valid, it's because there's a risk, very, very rare, but it's possible, that at some point you have here one chain that has 6 blocks, and here another chain that has 6 different blocks. And the transactions I have in it may be on one end, maybe on the other end, maybe on both ends, but they may not be at the same place. So if I want to do, and I didn't talk about double spending is I'm going to give you one transaction when I give you 110 Bitcoin, and I'm going to give you at the same time 110 Bitcoin, just like I could make 2 different checks to you. If there's only one chain, if I give it first to him, because I can give it exactly at the same time to both of you, so if I give him first to him and he puts its transaction to be processed, then when I hand you the other transaction, you will see, no, it's already ongoing because there's only one chain. But if I do that on 2 different chains, you may not be aware that I already spent the money. So that's why we say you have to wait always 6 blocks in case there's a double 2 branches to ensure that what's written in the book cannot be changed. It's not that it's going to disappear, it may change in order. Yes, and after you. Yes?
Prevention, traceability, can it be avoided by schemes such as tumbler schemes, or when you have, for instance, a big pool of Bitcoin? You mentioned the Bitcoin banding mark. You send Bitcoin to that pool, and then you just go further with another transaction, but with other Bitcoins. Such schemes are known. How can we avoid them?
I don't get what kind of scheme.
You want to transfer some Bitcoins from A to C.
Uh-huh.
What you want to do is that you're going to use B, and that B you're going to send it to some Bitcoins. But what you're going to do is the Bitcoins from A to B and B to C are going to be different. The amount is going to be the same, but the Bitcoins are going to be different. How can we address such problems? Because if you want to avoid that, then
So the thing is that there's a temporal thing in that. So there's two things in what you say. So strictly speaking, if you have a first transaction from A to B, then a transaction from B to C, for the transaction from B to C to occur, the transaction from A to B has to be written in the book. So here there's no risk because there's a temporal order here. But what you're also underlying is the fact that some other blockchains, not Bitcoin, but some other blockchains, want to keep track of all the Bitcoin, of all the coins, but they also want to shuffle the owners. So they have, let's say, black boxes when you have 10 inputs of the same amount, 10 outputs of the same amount, and you don't know which input goes to who. So in that case, the owners keep the same amount of money, but those black boxes cut the traceability system. So the history is still there. You're sure that it's a genuine token because it entered the system and reappeared somewhere else. But you don't know if the Bitcoins you're seeing in front or the coins you're seeing in front are the same one as the others. So these are different things.
you have also like the transfers intercurrencies. So if I want to send you some Bitcoins, what I might do is that I might convert those Bitcoins.
Yeah, but you're going to pay some fees. So you're going to have a delay, and you're going to pay some fees. But yes, you can change as many currencies as you want. There's even systems that just like Tor systems to go from currency to currency to really make it absolutely not trackable. But if you really want to have your money that untrackable, I don't know what kind of business you're in, but yes.
You showed us some examples of blockchain in different industries like pharma and financial services. And there are a lot of startups in travel and aviation who say that they are trying to revolutionize the global distribution system using blockchain. So what does it actually mean when they say that they're trying to use blockchain and change the distribution system?
I worked a lot, and I'm still working a lot with airliners and things like that, and so they have different use of that. So some are tracking the different parts and the maintenance of all their planes. Another thing is a way for them to track the luggages, because when you have several legs and you go through several companies, they want to ensure to know exactly where your luggage is at what point. And also they tend to use the blockchain for loyalty points and to create some sort of currency that you could trade for onboard entertainment, having water on board or whatever. So there are, again, many different usages of different blockchains, but solving different problems.
But what is there which was not there earlier? Is it the same idea underlying that you just can track what's going on?
Again, like I said, the blockchain is just a new and more efficient and probably more scalable way of tracking and tracing. We were able to track and trace before, but it was very complicated. So the blockchain helps it because it's a central plane somewhere that allows lots of different people to connect and push information, put information. So it makes a very easy exchange place for information. So it just makes the life way easier. It's not the most disruptive use case of the blockchain is really the cryptocurrency, because it's the first time that we really see, well, maybe not the first time, but it's the first time that we see at that global level a way to not use fiat currencies. But on the other way, if you look in Japan, Rakuten, which is a bank and also a retailer, has, I think, 10,000 different retail places, and you can use Rakuten points with the same as yens. So when you are very well positioned in a country, you can decide that your loyalty points are worth are a real currency. But that's the very disruptive approach. Yeah. That was it.
I wonder who the miners are. Individuals, companies?
People like you and me to start with. First, it was people who just wanted to gain a little bit money, and because it's funny and geeks love that kind of things, and lots of people were spending nights to fine-tune the algorithm to find faster it's a game. It's like a game. So these are people who are there to
So there are people investing in processing power.
Exactly. I'm not aware of any companies who would have spent much money in that, because again, I mean, it's just like going to the casino. I mean, if you really want to get, so I don't know neither companies who are in the casino every night to try to make money. So yes.
You briefly mentioned the tangle structure.
Yeah.
Just wanted to ask you which one between blockchain and the direct elastic graphs is the future for cryptocurrencies?
It's a very good question. Personally, I don't believe that much in the Tango, because to me it's highly marketing, and there are some claims that are, in my opinion, not true. The fact that it's quantum resistant, and it's not quantum resistant, and so far nobody has mathematically proved the fact that it's really secure. A Tango, if you don't have enough transactions per second, is really easily hackable, while a blockchain is hardly hackable whether you have lots or very few transactions per second. So mathematically speaking, nothing proves yet that actually the DAG as it is today is a better answer than the classical blockchain structure. It's a different one because you don't have to deal with miners, but here everybody is a miner, so to me it doesn't make a huge difference. But what bothers me more is the fact that they made lots of claims that some are not verified yet, but some are not true. So I have doubts. And the other thing also is that when people ask me, do you believe in blockchain? I say, I believe in Bitcoin existence. I mean, it's been out in 2009. 2009. Nobody is maintaining it. It runs on its own, and it still works. And you have all the hackers of the world who's trying to hack it, and nobody has hacked it yet. I think it will occur at some point. No code is unbreakable. And the other thing is that, imagine that. Everybody has the code. It's exactly as if you had a great lock on your door, and you take a copy of that lock and you give it to all the locksmiths of the earth. And you can say, you can try to open it at home. You don't have to be in front of my door and get caught by the police. Work at home. Take your time. And you're so sure that nobody can open your door that you can give the blueprint of it. Because everybody has the code. So that's the beauty of it. Everybody has the code. Everybody has the time. Nobody has hacked it yet. So what it proves to me is that it's a pretty good code. Yes?
Can you talk a bit about the ICO? What makes it more than just a crowdsourcing?
You answered the question. I have absolutely no clue. To me, again, the parallel I usually make is that when the internet allowed small people to be able to trade in banks for stocks, it was great. And now when you look, the people who are losing money are the small people. To me, ICO is the exact same thing. It's just a way to get to rob more people to money, because you have people who think, oh, yes, I'm gonna be rich. Yes, I lost it. Just like the casino. I mean, if you really want to have fun, go to the casino.
What about the funding part? Because
No. The funding part. I'm sure that in in most of the, maybe not in most, but in some cases, it's a genuine attempt to raise some money. But like I said at the beginning, I've raised funds 3 times through VC channels. It works very well. At least in front of you, you have people who will lend you money against your best work, and those people will really challenge you. And I think it's better to have someone who challenges you and makes you realize that maybe your project cannot fly. So if it cannot fly, don't waste your time. Just don't do it. And don't lose other people's money. So to me, there are already very fine ways of creating companies. This one doesn't seem that logical to me. But again, only my...
So is it a matter of regulation? It's more regulated?
No, again, even regulated. I think that what is interesting when you create something is to have people who are challenging you. Here, nobody's challenging you. You just put on a website that you're the strongest, that you're going to do this, that you're going to do that, that the tangle is quantum resistant. Oh, it's quantum resistant. Yes, I'm going to invest in that one. It says it's quantum resistant. That's the point. Yes.
So, from an architectural point of view, don't you think there's a limit to the applicability of blockchain in general for financial services? What I want to say is, in terms of power efficiency, for sure this distributed architecture is more efficient in terms of security. However, as you scale up in the number of transactions, for instance, comparing Bitcoin with Visa, comparing the distributed architecture with the centralized one, don't you think there's a limit there? Because the amount of computing power that you need to add up, to cope up with the amount of transactions that are done
No.
in centralized architecture, the economical benefits are actually...
No. No. The one thing is that please really make a clear separation between Bitcoins and the processing power required by Bitcoins and other blockchains. If you're not a public, anonymous chain where you have inside assets that are valuable, which is the only one, or actually the only 2 ones for a moment are Ethereum and Bitcoin, then you need a very high security. And that security, if you're public and anonymous, can only be done by a very huge processing power just to protect you. If you're in another environment, you don't need all that thing. So there's no limitation. The blockchain like Hyperledger can manage thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of transactions per second. Visa, it's 200 by seconds. Come on. So that's why it's really not an issue. We really have to make distinction between Bitcoin, who is using lots of energy, yes, but not the others. Yes.
And what's the point of limiting the number of Bitcoins in the end?
Scarcity.
And what's going to happen when people won't be able to...
No, it's scarcity. I mean, the Mona Lisa is very expensive because it's the only one of these paintings painted by Leonardo da Vinci. If you had 10 billions of it, it would not be in the Louvre. So scarcity has been designed so that it gains value potentially, and that's it.
But once all Bitcoins are going to be created, nobody's going to work on the consensus anymore because.
Supposedly, the system is supposed to be self-sufficient by the fees. It's been created so that when the number of given Bitcoins by the bank decreases totally, the amount of total fees should be higher, and it should be quote sufficient. But I would be surprised that at some point the price really decreases, and that the processing power required decreases along with it, and that it's stabilized to a very decent processing power, that we go back to having just species to do that. Yes?
How do other use cases of blockchain who don't use the proof of work algorithm ensure the security of the system?
Many others. If you, for instance, if you are in a private and identified environment, you even don't need proofs of anything.
So how do you care about fork attacks, 51% attacks, and double spending programs?
So the mining is really there only to pick someone randomly. It's a way to say, I'm going to take your block. I'm going to take your block. A proof of stake is just another way to say, I'm going to take your block. But consensus, checks, validity, multi-branch system, it stays. Consensus mining is just a way to get a winner every 10 minutes. But you could say, because we are all together and we all know each other, we can say that you're going to have, and it's the case for the Tangle, when you know who is going to, not the Tangle, the Cardano, where you know exactly who's going to mine the next block. It's just a matter of having a way of ensuring that it's randomly picked. So you know in Cardano that you will be the next one to mine, but before you're pointed out, you don't know it's going to be you. So it's just a different ways of saying it's going to be you, it's going to be you, it's going to be you. It's different ways of creating random systems.
Okay, so in that way it means that at a given moment there is a kind of a weak member in the system that could be hacked in order to correct the code.
That's why it's taken randomly. The reason to pick things randomly is that you cannot say, okay, so I'm going to hack the system, I'm going to prepare. The weakness of the system would be, and that's the 51% attack you're referring to, is that if at some point I can freeze time and I can go in all of your books and change page 12, the third line of all of your books, or at least at 51% of the books, and put the time back in motion, then you would have a system where 51% has one truth that is to my advantage, and 49% will have another truth. And as the system takes the biggest chunk, they will have to change their book with ours, and I will have my fake transaction written in the system. So that's the only weakness we know. But in order to do that, there's two things. There's that random picking, so you never know when it's your box that's going to be chosen. And then after that, you have a very small amount of time for the consensus, and that means that you would have to bribe all of the people saying, I know the box is fake, but here's €100. Please pass it to your neighbor. So the system, it's not that it's impossible. It's just that it's not doable. It's not impossible. It's just not doable. And all the blockchains have different systems of making it non-doable. Some are working better than the other. And like I said, I'm not saying that Bitcoin is the best one. What I'm saying is that it's the one that's been proved working for the longest, because it's the oldest. That's the only thing I can say. Maybe as we speak, maybe Bitcoin has been hacked and we don't know it. I don't know. But eventually, I think it will happen. Yes?
Do you think will the blockchain used for national currencies in countries? And what will be the consequences?
To me, blockchains are really a mean, not an end. But we could imagine to have some digital euros that are created over a blockchain. Why not? But it's just a mean, not an end. So, I mean, at some point we had only coins, then we had notes, then we had checks, then we had credit cards. It can be another medium to exchange a certain value. If you take a note, there's a unique serial number on it. So you could say, I digitalize that note into the blockchain. Why not? Yes?
My question is related to the history of blockchain. So how did blockchain come about? Was it like a product of some lab? And what makes it?
We don't know. We don't know. It's one day a white paper appeared, written by Satoshi Nakamoto, which is an alias. So we don't know if it's one guy, 10 guys, 30 girls. We don't know who is behind that name. All we know is that they wrote that white paper, which is really incredibly brilliant. And it just took existing technologies. Everything in the Bitcoin is old, matured, highly validated technologies that are just put in a very intelligent way together, and it created the Bitcoin. So we don't know who created it. It just appeared into a nine. And when you look at it, it's not rocket science. It's just classical technologies, but that are so intelligently put together that it's really brilliant. Yes?
Today, there is pretty much like every one blockchain for any special purpose. So there is a problem of interconnection that is rising. So do you think it's possible to conceive a kind of one one blockchain that would connect all the other, or what would be the nature of such a software?
Yeah, so yes and no. So 1,500 blockchains, that's too much, we agree. One is probably not enough. So I think we'll end up with some, maybe 10, 12 different blockchains for different usage, different verticals. But I mean, when you look at it, I mean, you still have Apple and Android still not working together. And so the environments in the world where you have only one flavor, it's really rare. Even Coca-Cola has their flavors different in every country. So less than 1,500, yes. One, probably not, in my opinion. But I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not an oracle.
What kind of careers can we expect in the blockchain space as business students?
I think, again, it's a mean. It's a mean, not an end. So I don't think you will have people who are doing only blockchains, but I think it's very important to understand this totally new distributed and self-sustained environment, because I think that lots of new applications will be based on such environments. Because it's also a big, it's a big change. Because when you look at it, it's also a response to disintermediation. I mean, for instance, there's a blockchain called Arcade City, who does exactly what Uber does, but for €0 of fees. So blockchains will probably, I mean, if you have a great idea, maybe it's the moment to create a startup, because I think there's lots of opportunities in that place for the moment. Yes?
From your position at Worldline, could you please give us your opinion about trends in blockchain application?
From what I see, it really picks up now in what we call globally logistics and traceability. So like I showed for pharmaceutical, for food, for products traceability, for IoT traceability, for all the systems where end-to-end you need to have the ability to guarantee that an information has been passed to the next peer and that the whole thing has been securely done. So there are lots of different environments. When you think about the autonomous car, personally, I don't believe in autonomous cars. But imagine, in front of you, you have an autonomous car that just brakes, and you have an autonomous car. The car in front will have to warn you, "Hey, I'm stopping right now," but you enter in the car. Whose fault is it? Is it the other car who didn't send the message? Or you did receive the message, but your car didn't work? So is it your car the problem? Is it the other car's the problem? Or something else happened? You need to have a book of truth somewhere. So as we have more and more IoTs interconnecting in many different ways all the time, we will need to have a way to ensure what happened. So to me, there's going to be lots of things in the IoT world using the blockchain. Now you're tired. No, not yet.
One of the problems with blockchain for cryptocurrencies use cases is the transaction fees associated with transactions for any amount we are willing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
That problem does not exist anymore with the dangle structure, so which eventually makes it perfect for such applications. So
why do you say there is no fee in the dangle in the dangler structure?
Because the node that creates the transaction has to validate previous transactions, and thus there is no miners, there is no mining.
Every node is a miner. It's just a fully distributed mining system.
Yeah, but
So what you're saying is that in that environment you have people who are willing to process without being paid.
exactly.
If you create an environment where you have processors who are not needing to be paid, the blockchain works as well. It's a change of paradigm that you're underlining, not the technology. The technology has nothing to do. But at some point, why would people want to process things if they're not paid in return?
Because other people will process their thing, so everyone wins. As long
They're
as
not processing their things, they're processing other things. But we could create blockchain with a blockchain where when you're posting a transaction, you have to process two other transactions. You could do that as well. It's just the consensus mechanism and the processing mechanism that would be different. But it has nothing to do with the tangle itself. The tangle is just the way the data are interconnected with each other. So yes, if you have people who are willing to process without being paid, yes, you can have a totally free environment. But whatever the technology, it's not linked to the technology in that case. It's linked in the fact that you have a peer group of users who are willing not to be paid. I mean, in both cases, if you have 10 million transactions to be processed, you will use the same energy processing the 10 million transactions.
But they also claim that
they claim lots of things.
They have a higher throughput rate.
They claim lots of things, yeah. No, but what throughput? Throughput of number of transactions? Yeah. Compared to Bitcoin. Of course, anybody has a better throughput than Bitcoin. I mean, even you with your smartphone, you have a better throughput than on Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a very slow throughput, but it's done by design. It's done voluntarily. You could create a Bitcoin B or Bitcoin 2 that has a way higher number of transactions per second. It's the choices that were made in 2009 that prevents the Bitcoin environment to go higher than 7 transactions per second. It's editorial choices that's been made. But like I said, Hyperledger goes hundreds of thousands or even million transactions per second, which is way higher than what IOTA does.
Thank you. Was it the last question? Okay, so thank you very much, Nicolas.
You're welcome.
So maybe I think you should be thirsty and maybe hungry, so we can share some sandwich in the cafeteria just next door. Thank you.